Well, kind of a busy day in Canada. You have Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, who has announced a tremendously large budget, the second largest deficit in Canadian history outside of COVID. So if it wasn't for COVID, this would be the largest fuckery, I guess is the best way to put it. $78 billion. And while all this is happening, we're getting kind of flashbacks to this time last year where Chrystia Freeland was delivering the budget. And then she's like, you know what? I'm just going to resign. Well, that didn't happen again, but it kind of sort of happened for the Conservatives. You have a Conservative MP, what used to be Mr. Speaker, who was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the Liberals. So Pierre Poilievre fired him. And now the Liberals have 170 seats, not too far off from a majority government. But the good news is that pretty much no party leader wants to support this budget. So we're going to take a look at everything in this video. All I ask in return is for you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And let's get right into it. Starting off with Pierre Poilievre, when he broke his silence in the House on the budget.
Mr. Speaker, instead, we will. Our party wanted an affordable budget for an affordable life, and on behalf of all the Canadians who can no longer afford to eat, heat, or house themselves because of Liberal inflation, we Conservatives cannot support this costly Liberal budget.
And then the Bloc Québécois. Here's what he said:
$78 billion of deficit, whatever tricks they want to invent. There's nothing of what we did ask in the budget.
And the NDP, here's what he said.
It's got a very large deficit. Spending is up in many ways. There are, some record investments, but it also is, cutting public services that Canadians need. So this is something that we'll be taking a very close look at.
And Elizabeth May, here's what she said.
There's no way that we can, as Greens, vote yes on this budget.
So now you're caught up on what the party leaders said, but now we have to take a look at what's going on with Conservative MP and how he just decided to up and quit, because this is pretty huge news. So right here, you got former Tory MP Chris d'Entremont to join the Liberals, says the Toronto Star, and it's actually official. Here's his resignation letter. Mr. Poilievre, please accept this letter of resignation from the Conservative Party of Canada and the Conservative Caucus effective immediately. And he's already joined Mark Carney's Liberal cabinet. Here's him not too long ago.
A lot of people that voted for me voted for change. They voted for Pierre Poilievre. Youth were voting for him. Young voters were voting for him. People concerned about the fishery were voting for him.
So this is what's so dangerous is when you have elections in Canada, it's kind of like party elections. Like you're going to the polls and you're voting for, yes, a specific MP, but it's also voting for the party. And if there's enough votes in certain areas, then the prime minister gets elected based off of, the party, how many votes were for the party. And so people voted for him, but they voted for Pierre in that riding. Like no one's like, hey, Chris, yeah, that guy, we gotta have him in because he's a best MP. No, it was like, hey, I want to vote for Pierre, so I'm going to vote for this guy. And so there's a lot of different things that are circulating online. People are calling him a traitor. People are saying, you know what, you shouldn't be able to do that. We should look into if that's ever going to happen. You should have to run in a by-election, because if that's the case, people could just easily get elected in certain ridings and then just switch seats, and that would change the course of our government in Canada. Like we're 2 or 3, 4 people away from this happening and the Liberals getting a majority, and then they don't have to vote on anything because they can just approve anything that they want. I mean, they would go through the formality of voting, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad if you're a Conservative or just not a Liberal in Canada. And if the shoe were on the other foot, if the Conservatives were doing this, if the Conservatives were in power and Liberals were just like, you know what, we want to be on the winning team, so we're going to go with the Conservatives, Liberals would be just equally as outraged as how Conservatives are right now. So it's more about protecting Canada's integrity instead of just like, hey, this is happening against my team, I don't like this.
There for a second. I just got a text from Chris d'Entremont, who tells me that he is joining the government caucus. So Chris D'Entremont has resigned from the Conservative caucus because of obviously issues over the possibility that this budget could be defeated and lead to an election. He resigned as a Conservative today, and he tells me that he is joining the government caucus. So there you go. The Mark Carney caucus is now up to 170 seats, minus the Speaker. That brings them down to 169. They need 2 seats, Peter, to pass the budget. So I don't know if this budget will deliver economic growth, but it's delivered caucus growth at a share of
You've been working on that all afternoon, haven't you?
Well, it's been a weird day of math. Okay, but just going back to the concerns that you were talking about.
Yikes. Not good at all. Not good. Now we're going to take a look at Andrew Scheer and what he has to say about the matter, because he breaks his silence on the fact that one of the MPs just jumped ship.
Budget. I got to ask you, we just got into our inbox. An MP of yours, Chris D'Entremont, has quit caucus, has resigned from caucus. Your reaction to that and what it says about your party?
Well, it's disappointing that Chris D'Entremont has decided that he doesn't want to fight for a more affordable life for Canadians, that he doesn't want to fight inflationary deficits that are driving up grocery prices in his riding. You know, he's now telling constituents that he just got their votes just a few months ago that now he's in favor of the industrial carbon tax on things like farm equipment and fertilizer, driving up food costs, that he's in favor of fuel standards that the Liberals are imposing that's going to increase gasoline by 17 cents a litre. So, you know, he'll have to go back to the supporters in his riding that dug deep into their own pockets to support his campaign and explain why he took their precious time and resources and then turn their back on them just a few months later.
Might it be that he doesn't think your party's solutions are the correct ones now?
You know, he ran on them in the platform. He saw our platform and he said, yes, I support all this back in April when Conservatives were offering hope to young Canadians who couldn't find jobs, who had to move back in with their parents, back into their parents' basement. Our platform offered hope for young Canadians. Mark Carney's message is one of sacrifice, that Canadians who have been hammered hard by the cost of living crisis are going to have to sacrifice even more to feed a ever-growing budget, a deficit that's going to add billions to the national debt that has to be paid off with interest. So Mr. D'Entremont's going to have to explain that to his constituents.
And I hope we have definitely requested an interview, and I'll be asking him those questions. But ultimately, what does it say that there might be enough in this budget and the way in which this Prime Minister is governing to satisfy someone who ran just a few months ago as a Conservative? Does that not say something more largely about your party?
I wouldn't read too much of that. I know Mr. D'Entremont has had some personal grievances about the fact that he didn't get elected Deputy Speaker. He's been kind of upset about that. So I'm disappointed that he let his own personal grievances get in the way of his commitment to his constituents, that he would fight for a more affordable budget to bring down the cost of living, to lower the tax burden on Canadians. But again, he's going to have to explain to all the people that he looked in the eye, took their donations, put signs on their lawns, and then explain why he betrayed them just a few months later.
It is pretty disgusting, and I think that there needs to be some form of a reform that comes from this, because if this were, on the opposite side of the political spectrum, if it were Liberals fleeing to the Conservatives to then create a Conservative majority, Liberals would be absolutely outraged, and so would the mainstream media, which is the propaganda machine for the Liberal government. And so I kind of want to pass a question off to you. How do you feel about this? Do you think that there should be a reform against this? If you're just going to switch parties like this, should you have to go through a bit more steps, or should it be this easy to literally just jump ship and help the opposition or the opponents win a majority government without actually running an election? Kind of weird now that you think about it and even say it out loud.
This government is decreasing immigration, getting rid of climate policies your party wanted gone, and cutting the public service. If you believe, as you told Canadians during the election, that those things will better our country, isn't this budget worth supporting?
Why do you say they're shrinking the size of the federal
public service by 40,000 jobs?
Well, what I saw was a deficit of $55.6 billion. Sorry, that's public debt service. The deficit under Mark Carney is even bigger than under Justin Trudeau.
I didn't say they're not spending, but I'm saying that they are cutting the public service, which is something you advocated for.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of notional things that they're hoping Canadians will trust them that will actually come to fruition. When you see a government that's announcing new programs, massive amounts of new inflationary spending that's going to drive up that deficit, I don't see that as the government getting smaller. I see more and more Canadians having to work harder, pay more taxes to pay the interest on that debt that Mark Carney's racking up. I mean, what Mark Carney has essentially said is, after 10 years of inflationary deficits and massive overspending by Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney saying the problem in Canada is that the government wasn't spending enough, that the deficit wasn't big enough, and that the debt was not big enough. You know that now under Mark Carney, more of your tax dollars is going to pay the interest on that debt than on health care? That's not sustainable.
I have a number of questions for the minister about the level of debt service charges, and I do take your point on that. I also think back to the last time we, as a country, were in a crisis in 2008 and 2009. And I remember the Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, spending a lot of money on infrastructure in order to stimulate the economy. When I look at the line items that add to increased spending to drive up that deficit, a huge chunk in this case is exactly that, is spending on infrastructure in order to spur economic growth against the backdrop of an economic crisis. Why was it okay then and not now?
Well, the difference was targeted investments after years of balanced budgets, bringing Canada's fiscal house back in order, versus now when we see a government that's really spending a lot of money on areas that's not going to benefit Canadians. There's not a single affordability measure in this budget, not a single thing that's going to lower grocery prices or reward hard work. This is a budget that's creating new ways for the government to spend money. It's bloating bureaucracies. All the things they're talking about are notional and far off. I look at the tables that they actually put in the budget. Investments going down this quarter. It went down last quarter. They're projecting it to go down next quarter. This is all since Mark Carney's become Prime Minister.
So as you can tell, things are getting very, very weird in Canada. And the weirdest thing is the fact that every Canadian knows food is very expensive. Groceries and restaurant food is very expensive. Housing is expensive. Everything is expensive. The air you breathe is taxed. When you die, you're taxed. When you're born, you're taxed. You're taxed literally on top of tax sometimes in Canada. It's disgusting. And what did Canadians vote for? They voted for more of this, more money printing, more hardships in life, more government handouts. I'm a little fearful for the future of Canada because we keep voting for, it's like Stockholm syndrome, keep voting in our own abusers. So I want to pass a question off to you. How do you feel about this? Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you confused? Are you in support of everything that took place? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, all I ask in return is for you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in another one. Bye for now.